every evening from NPR.
Buying and selling a place to live is different from tomorrow morning.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Progressive Insurance, offering small business owners protection for what they've worked hard to build with over 30 customizable coverages. Learn more at progressivecommercial.com.
I'm David Brancaccio. Some big changes to the real estate market are on the way starting this weekend. The National Association of Realtors has agreed to change how real estate agents make their money. Buyers and sellers, this matters to you. Here's Marketplace's Henry Epp.
In most states, home buyers haven't had to sign an agreement with their realtor before they go shopping for a home. The commission their agent eventually receives is typically paid by the home seller. It's usually about 5 to 6% of the home's cost, which the buyer's agent splits with the seller's agent. But now home buyers will need to negotiate agreements with their agents up front. Ryan Tomasello at the investment firm KBW says that could lead buyers to shop around more for a good agent.
We think that buyer agents will also find that they need to compete more heavily on the quality of their services and the price of their services, which has not historically been the case.
In theory, that could drive down commission costs, and it could have an effect on housing prices because home sellers will no longer have to cover that 5 to 6% commission for both the buyer and seller's agents. Some consider it a baked-in part of a home's cost. But now it could become just another part of the negotiation process, Tomasello says.
No different than, say a home seller offering a concession to cover certain repairs or other closing costs.
All these changes could drive some realtors out of the industry, Tomasello says, but it could also spur some innovation. I'm Henry Epp for Marketplace.
Yesterday's news of strong shopping midsummer shushed talk of any recession. Au contraire, it seems. Later today, we'll get a preliminary reading on consumer sentiment for August. It's supposed to hold pretty steady. This morning, NASDAQ futures are minus 0.6%. S&P futures are down 0.4%. Going into the second half of August here, the S&P is up slightly for the month so far. Remember the big plunge? Well, it's gone. We're also covering what could be the biggest hack of data ever. It happened this spring from a company that does background checks, a company that held 2.9 million records on people. I should say billion records on people. It'll be in the Marketplace Morning Report podcast feed now.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Amazon Business, aiming to help save time by offering smart business buying solutions so there's more time to focus on growing the business and less time doing the admin. More at AmazonBusiness.com. And by Bitwarden Password Manager, designed to empower travelers who need access to secure logins from any device and any place. Available to download at Bitwarden.com.
Now let's check up on the green energy transition and the quest to get to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by mid-century so we can keep the planet from overheating, oceans rising, and people fleeing what become unlivable regions. Today, a reminder that this vast overhaul is not all just zeros and ones, digital-style upgrade. The McKinsey Global Institute is just out with a report called The Hard Stuff, Navigating the Physical Realities of the Energy Transition. We're joined by McKinsey's Mekhala Krishnan. Welcome.
Great to be here with you, David.
I mean, it was always hard. All of this is hard. But what have we been doing? The low-lying fruit? That's what we've been picking so far?
Yeah, so that's exactly the kinds of questions we were investigating in this research. And indeed, what we find is while there's been a lot of momentum on many fronts, we've seen technology costs come down, we've seen deployment happen of many technologies. Unfortunately, the reality is we're only 10% of the way there in terms of deploying a whole range of technologies, renewable power, electric vehicles, only 10% of where we need to be. And so the question we really wanted to ask with this work is what do we need to do to get from 10% to 100%? What is that remaining 90%? What is it actually going to take? We've forgotten that at its core, what we're talking about is a physical transformation. We need to build a new low emissions energy system and we need it to work.
I know we're getting used to in America tweaking the software code or something and causing revolutions.
Yeah.
Producing revolutions, I should say. This requires heavy equipment digging in the ground. It requires mining materials.
Right. This is about building stuff and making sure that it works. I mean, I think one way people could approach this transition is to say, well, we're swapping in a light bulb that doesn't work with one that does. But actually, we're talking about rewiring the whole system, right? And so what we've come up with here is what we hope is a good blueprint for that rewiring. What we found was that about half of energy system-related carbon dioxide emissions are relatively easy. So these are areas where we've made meaningful progress. There's still work to be done to do the last mile of innovation to really accelerate deployment. So examples of this might be heat pumps and making sure that heat pump technologies work in the coldest climates. But about half of these challenges, 12, which we might alliteratively call the demanding dozen, are in areas where the challenges, the hurdles are much harder. Here, we have technologies that don't yet perform at the level that we need them to. And unfortunately, it's not just one technology that we need to get to work. To get this demanding dozen to work, we actually need a set of technologies to work together. So it's an interlinked challenge.
So you've been down this deep rabbit hole. Are you left thinking that we can't actually pull this off because of these challenges that you detail?
People often ask me this question, are you an optimist or a pessimist about the transition? And I would choose to say I'm a pragmatist about it. We have the easier stuff that we've identified. We need better batteries. We need more efficient electrolyzers to produce hydrogen. So we need innovation with a small I. But we also need innovation with a big I, meaning we need ways around the problem as well. We need to think about ways that we reconfigure the system as a whole to make it work. So examples of that might be for trucking. Batteries can sometimes struggle with long-haul distances with heavy payloads because batteries are heavy. If you need the truck to go a longer distance, you need a heavier battery. And so in that case, instead of going through the problem, meaning innovating on battery energy density, you could also go around the problem, reconfigure trucking routes to have them be shorter, for example. So even in these hardest challenges, we do identify areas of low-hanging fruit that can at least start to bend the emissions curve. And I think this is part of where we want the dialogue to change, which is not just 2050, but what can we do in the here and now? And then, of course, start to plan for the bigger transformations that are to come.
McKinsey Global Institute partner, Mekhala Krishnan, thank you so much.
Thank you, David. It was a pleasure.
Be the person who knows the most about the energy transition at your next dinner party. The in-depth cut of our conversation there will be streamable from Marketplace online later today. Our executive producer is Kelly Silvera. Digital producer is Dylan Mietinen. Engineers Brian Allison and John Brewington. You're listening to the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.